What up, everybody? Welcome back to Turn Buck Time. I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
We have been here a long time. It is season 7, episode 4. We've been gone for a while. First off, and most importantly, happy birthday, Bark.
Thank you.
That was one of our reasons we didn't record recently, is because Barker was celebrating his birthday with some middle school bowling, which is always so exciting.
Like they said in Greece, if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter.
So true. It's just so true. So, I got a good one to talk to you about tonight that Barker actually found and dug up and has a little family history with. So, I hope that you're ready for.
Oh no,
Oh,
the
no.
cameras.
There it is.
There it is.
The
The
Maury.
Maury Island incident. Um, this was something I give a shout out to my mother who brought this up because apparently they were having a conversation at a church, I believe, about things from where you were, like where you were from, and things that people didn't know about where you were from. And this was something that my mom brought up, and a lot of people were like, "What are you talking about?" And so my mom grew up in Kelso in Rose Valley, which is kind of in between Kelso and Kalama. And in 1947, August 1st, there was a plane crash, a B-25 bomber crashed into the woods. Two of the airmen died in the plane crash, and two of the airmen escaped. One broke his, like injured his leg, like landed in a tree. The other one landed fine, parachuted down fine. In the middle of the night, just like crashed in the woods, like the middle of nowhere between Kalama and Kelso. And my grandfather was a teenager. And apparently a bunch of people in the community just jumped into their trucks and like went out there to help try and see what was going on. And I, again, had not heard this story. Like I'm 41 years old now and just heard my mom reference it at Christmas this year. So I was interested and I went and started doing some digging. And it turns out that let's go back, a throwback to our boy Phil Frost and his love of UFOs.
Yeah.
So the plane crash is the kind of the end of the story. The beginning of the story. So Maury Island is, I'm trying to think, it's across from Des Moines,
Mhm.
Washington. And I want to say that puts it off of Bainbridge. Can't remember if it was Bainbridge or Vashon.
I think it's Vashon.
It's Vashon, I think, now
Yeah.
that I think about it. Um, anyway, and so like it's fairly local, right? Like we've lived in Washington State our whole
Oh, yeah.
lives. And it's like, why have I not heard of this? And so I started doing some digging. And so it goes back. Everyone is really familiar with the Roswell sighting of, right, out in the desert of New Mexico. Like we don't know what we saw, but we saw something. And that happened in July 8th, 1947. But these incidents that may or may not have occurred in Washington happened in June. So it actually predates,
Roswell.
Roswell, which for some people is kind of a big deal because before things were happening down there was stuff happening up here. And so the beginning of the story is a man named Harold Dahl and his son and a couple of workers and their dog. Dog is important. Were out on a boat and they apparently had a contract to collect like loose like log raft logs, right? They could like
Yeah.
they would collect them and take them back so they wouldn't like run into boats or resell them and whatnot.
Hmm.
And they were out there and they spot six UFOs, and they claim them, they describe them as being donut shaped. So not saucer shaped, donut shaped. They have a
Yeah, the
hole in the
whole
middle.
Yep.
Um, and they move, and then one of them appears to like kind of like wobble and have trouble like gaining like altitude, and it begins to eject what they describe. He describes it as like newspaper, like falling from the sky, but like when it hits like their boat, like it's like red hot.
Yeah, molten metal-esque.
Yeah. And it apparently kills their dog, and like it either burns or breaks his son's arm. And so like they go back to harbor, and like he tells his boss about it. His boss goes out and apparently picks up some like slag like that he finds at the site. And so they're a little shook up about it. They don't really say anything too much like right away. Um, this is also potentially the first written or first evidence of the Men in Black.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I love that because we're of the generation where like those movies came out with Will Smith and
Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. So it's kind of this interesting thing. So like this stuff happens, they really don't tell anybody. I think it's the next day. Like they don't tell anybody about it. They come back, and Harold Dahl is met by this guy who apparently is in a black suit, and they go to a local diner, and he sits him down, and the guy recounts what happened the previous day to him. Like tells him exactly what happened, and says like, "Hey, if you talk about this, like bad things will happen. Like you shouldn't talk about this."
Yeah,
And then the guy like just like gone. And then it's 47, right? So
right.
there's no internet, there's no everything's newspaper and like physical phone books, and phones are still, what I mean? Like that's not super advanced just yet.
Yeah.
Um, they talked to another kind of prominent local businessman,
Hmm.
Kenneth Arnold,
Yep.
who had on the 24th of June was hired to fly from Chehalis to Yakima, and then took a detour towards Mount Rainier to see if he could locate a missing plane out of McCord,
Yep.
because it wasn't JBLM yet. It was just McCord.
No, no, they weren't unified yet. It's McCord Field.
Yeah. And so he's up there and he sees nine somethings by
Yep.
Mount Rainier. And then all of a sudden they like book it, like, and he essentially uses his ability to say like the amount of time it took them to get from I think Rainier to I want to say Adams,
Yeah.
and he calculates that they would have been traveling at like 1,200 miles per hour, right? And so he's like, dang, those things were moving,
Yeah, they're hauling.
and like he comes back and he's like, that was weird.
Yeah.
And so he gets mixed up with, so Dahl works with a guy named Fred Chrisman, and we could probably do an entire episode on Fred Chrisman.
Yep.
um and because of his, they end up kind of reaching out to like a at the time kind of like a, for lack of a better term, like a kind of a sci-fi magazine
Yeah.
where like you kind of sell your story. And so they send some people out and they're investigating. He pulls in a pilot from United Airlines to talk to these guys, and they interview them. And then eventually like the FBI gets involved, and like they can go into way more detail. This book,
Yeah.
sorry, it's there we go. This book goes into a ton of detail about like all of these different interviews, and how the interviews at times like people knew stuff that they didn't like tell other people. And so like there's a lot of questions about like was there like government like were they bugging stuff, were they tapping phone lines? There's these anonymous people that make some calls here and there. And then um later in July, the US military actually sends two counterintelligence officers to the area to interview Arnold and Dahl.
Oh, yeah.
And like it's just and at one point, like Dahl's son like disappears and they find him like waiting tables in like Idaho.
Yep.
And he has like no clue like how he got there and like why he's there or that like he shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So like that's another kind of like weird piece to it. Um, and then at this meeting, apparently Chrisman surrenders to the military a Kellogg's cornflakes box
Yeah.
with this slag in it, this like solidified metal, which I just the idea that really important, evidence is kept in a
Then a
Kellogg's box.
cornflakes box. It was just like it was a little. It's weird though. Like just cutting you in here for a second. It's weird that it's just like it just lines up a little bit, right? It just lines up just a little bit. It's like the guy. I feel like the guy on History Channel who's like, and then this happened. And I mean, there's only one logical thing:
Not,
aliens.
not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Um, and so the two airmen, William Davidson and Frank Brown, take material back with them. They're supposed to take it from McCord to Hamilton Air Force Base in um, Novato, California. They load up the plane on August 1st. They take off from McCord, and 15 minutes into their flight, their B 25 has an engine fire, which the thing to think about, like World War II, if it had been made during World War II, the plane is less than 10 years.
Right. It's a new airplane.
Yeah, it's a newer plane. I mean, I think they take them out of service like in the early 50s
Hmm.
because technology was getting better. We're going to jets and whatnot.
Right.
But the plane catches fire. There was two additional airmen that were in there that were kind of serving as like more of like less like not the pilot, co-pilot, but like the guys that sit in like kind of the middle part of the bomber. So like
Yeah.
your
Like your
navigator,
ECM
right?
operator and your well, not bombardier, but you know what I mean. Like people who are running different parts, navigator, people who are running different parts of the plane.
Yeah, and like it just kind of seems like they were hopping a ride from Washington down to California. And so like they're told by the pilots to get out, right? Abandon ship. And they jump out. And then apparently at that point, like after they land, they're like, well, where's Davidson and Brown? And apparently the left wing of the airplane like breaks off and they get trapped inside and it crashes. And in my grandfather's testimony, he talks about like they asked, well, what did you see? And he's like, well, there was a plane crash and there was people who didn't make it. And he's like, I'd rather not talk about that.
Right.
So probably not super pleasant to come across as a 17-year-old or like a teenage kid.
Well, anybody, I mean, really.
Yeah. But then the military very quickly with a volunteer force comes out in the next couple of days and cleans up the site. Like removes like the local law enforcement people and says, we got this, we'll clean it up, don't worry about it.
Hmm.
And they were supposedly carrying this box with the material that was given to them, right, by Chrisman
Yeah.
to take back, like where were they taking it? Why were they taking it?
Yeah.
The plane crashes, you know what I mean? And to this day, within the last 10 years, people have gone up into Rose Valley, that's privately owned property, and you can still find pieces of the plane
Right.
like on the property, but like the main structure of it,
The fuselage.
like it sounds like all of the sensitive parts were taken. Like so, you always think about I think about like Black Hawk Down,
Right.
right? Like we got to blow up
Helicopter. Yeah.
helicopter to ruin the sensitive parts. Nobody can
Hmm.
backwards engineer our stuff. And so it almost feels like, they went up there and did that. And later on, like the government kind of comes back and like they're interviewed Dahl and Chrisman are interviewed. Dahl eventually at some point it is published that he says that it was a hoax.
Yeah.
But then there is counter claims that come back to say he was misquoted. He says, I wish it was
A hoax. Ooh.
a hoax. And even this is where things get weird to me. If it wasn't true and if it was a hoax, why I'm looking at the actual copy from the Washington state government
Yeah,
of
I saw
Senate
that.
Resolution
Yep.
8648.
That's what I saw too.
Um, doesn't have a date on when it was. It was in 2017.
Yes.
It recounts the basic story of the Maury Island incident during the Summer of Saucers.
Hmm.
Um, it says, line 21, whereas following the tragic deaths of Davidson and Brown, Harold Dahl publicly claimed his sighting at Maury Island was a hoax. And whereas special agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation conducted an investigation of the deaths of Davidson and Brown and ultimately concluded that Dahl did not recant his story, but that his claim of a hoax was itself a fabrication to avoid further public attention and ridicule.
Mm.
And so it says the FBI's conclusion and Dahl's secret were sealed for 50 years. And so there was a movie, an independent movie made in
Yeah,
2014.
saw that too.
And so in April 1st, 2017, right, it talks about there's a UFO festival in Burien,
Yep.
but it essentially says that like the the Washington state government recognizes April 18th, 2017.
Yep.
We recognize the 70th anniversary of the Maury Island incident.
Hmm.
So it's really interesting to me that if it was something that didn't occur
Right.
and
Or
was a
was a
hoax
hoax. Why would you as a senator put it on record?
and celebrate it in like it's, I mean, 70-year anniversary of something that didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the counterclaim to that would be like it's a pop culture thing at this point. Like it's just kind of a stuff of local legend, but like I don't know if you would write that in there then, right? Like
Well,
not
it
you
does
would
it
put it
does say
other
that it
than
has
right.
significance for pop culture,
Yeah.
but
That mentioned would be the Men in Black, right? Like that's the kind of idea behind it. So
it's you know, it's just really interesting. And like, so caveat, Fred Chrisman was a fighter pilot in World War II, a teacher, and then was also investigated as being connected to the assassination of JFK.
yes, I saw it because that was another thing when I was doing the digging on this. They were like the UFO that took down JFK, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I didn't know that was tied to this."
But Chrisman claimed that in like World War II, that he was in like the Kashmir region of India, got shot down and like entered into a tunnel system and fought like some sort of beings in these tunnels, and then like sold that story to the same magazine that was going to report the Maury Island incident. And then he was kind of like connected to somebody who may have had information, I think, from the Cuban side about JFK. Totten Rainier, like public school teacher, so we
Yeah.
can be trusted. Um,
Easy on that bark. We're gonna get flagged.
um, so like he brings a lot of scrutiny to the case, but Dahl doesn't have any record of like being like a charlatan, so to say.
Yeah.
And neither does the other pilot,
Yeah. With
Arnold,
William
Arnold,
Arnold. Yeah.
Kenneth Arnold. Like
Kenneth Arnold.
he was a well thought of businessman, well within his faculties. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's one of these interesting things where,
Why would these people make this up?
and it would be quote unquote being made up before Roswell.
Right.
And it's being reported and investigated before the incidents happen in
Yeah.
Roswell, is kind of like the other interesting piece to it. So I mean, like it's one of those ones, like I was having a conversation with kids in class today about like, well, how do we not know, like how do we know or how do we not know something? And it's like, well, we don't have the evidence. like we rely really like heavily on written accounts, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of things in history that
Weren't
weren't
written down.
written down. Like he was asking about like, well, there were LGBT people back then? And I was like, yes, there were people of alternate lifestyles in the 17 and 1800s.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, but we didn't write about it. And I go, exactly, because it wasn't okay to write about. People told them that they couldn't write that. And then I talked about Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
Yeah.
But like, we'll never know the nature of their relationship. Was it, consensual? Was it not? But there's no
Mhm.
evidence because people didn't write about
Yeah.
mixed race relations during that time period. So it's like there's the limitations to what we can do as a discipline. And I
Hmm.
think this area is just really, really interesting because like we have all these. I think the real danger moving forward is going to be AI generated photos and
Yes.
audio, and it
Yes.
really is kind of from a historian's perspective kind of dubious to look at where we're going. We've made it extremely easy to fabricate audio, video, and
Oh
visual
yeah.
evidence.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that politicians are now using AI images
Hmm.
is kind of troubling as well because it's you're so concerned about image control, but yet you're letting a robot
Yeah. Make whatever you want.
generate
That
the image that you're
that
putting.
that makes your story plausible. So
So I mean, like, I just thought it was interesting. Um, I don't want to end like Ancient Aliens, where I'm saying, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
aliens.
But it is rather curious that people saw some floating donut things,
Yeah.
and then saw some other kind of, because I think data says that Washington State gets more UFO sightings a year. We get like the most.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that's just, good mushrooms from the Hope rainforest
I
or
mean, it could be. It could
or
be.
if
But I
there's
mean,
some
like,
kind of
but when we talk about UFOs have always been written off as technology, like new technology that people don't recognize, right? Like that's always what's been written off as. But I had a conversation with my students one time and I was like, do you think aliens are real? And they're like, no. And I was like, you really think in the vastness of the universe that we are the only intelligent life here? Like that, just statistically speaking, is so far off. So I don't know.
And over the last couple of decades, the government has come out and said we do have files on unidentified flying stuff
Yep.
that isn't ours.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just a fun one. And your grandfather's involved. Even better.
Yeah, yeah. Good old Bob Davenport.
Oh, there you go. I thought you were gonna say Bob Barker. Oh wait, that's your brother.
That's my brother.
Yeah. So yeah. So we're hoping to have one next week. Maybe next week. Oh, we have connecting the dots next week, so we might not have one next week, but the week
Okay.
after. I've
Maybe
sent a
in two
couple
weeks.
of I've sent a couple to Bark that I have some ideas that I'd love to run through. So
There were some good ones.
yeah. So, but if there's nothing else, Bark, anything for the good of the order. Good luck to
Nope.
the RA Long basketball team for sure. Uh, with their run. When's their next game?
We will play on Valentine's Day at 6 o'clock.
Love that. Great date night. So,
We don't know who we're playing yet.
okay. That's what you get when you're the number one ranked team in the 2A in the state.
Most likely we're playing Ridgefield,
All right.
but Ridgefield plays Aberdeen tomorrow.
Okay. Quincy made it through their first round of the playoffs. They beat Toppenish, and they'll play Ellensburg on Valentine's Day as well, 6 p.m. in Ellensburg. So, but if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'm the turn.
I'm the Bart.
And we have been here a long, long time. Have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And by golly, you just be well.